Good evening. I wish everyone a very happy birthday. Today being 28th of February, today was the day when Auroville was inaugurated. And this Auroville festival, we are in 2023. The theme of this year's festival was sincerity, and we tried to be sincere in, uh, in all our conversations throughout from 21st to 28th. We touched upon various topics. And today we have come to the very crucial, the most important in terms of city conversation, the idea of the galaxy. In this session, we will explore the task of giving a concrete form to Sri Aurobindo's vision as entrusted to the mother. The galaxy model was conceptualized for the creation of a new world, a new humanity, a new society, expressing and embodying the new consciousness in the work is what she has undertaken. As an echo of Mahasaraswati's very nature of things, it is a collective ideal that calls for a collective effort so that it may be realized in the terms of integral human perfection. With that thought, we have in our panel Neil, thank you, Tuan, Jaya, Srivatsa, and Anu. Thank you very much for joining today. For the ones who did not join the session before, the format is such that we begin from the bird's eye view. We look at the whys of the theme. Today the theme is, as I said, galaxy, and also we have the theme of the day. So as I mentioned, the theme of the festival is sincerity, and today the theme of the day is self-giving, dedicated to Mahasaraswati. And in city conversation, we are going to talk about galaxy. I want you to look at our conversation reflected from the point of sincerity and self-giving. The format, as I said, initially we will begin. I would like you to hear your opening remarks, and I would like you to look at it from the why aspect, the higher aspirational aspect of galaxy. And when you reflect on it, please look at it from two opposite perspectives. One is the individual perspective and also the collective perspective. And slowly we will move on to the how aspect. It's been 55 years. How do we really manifest it? What are the challenges? And slowly we will end our session with the practical, immediate, manifestable, practicable ideas that we can take home from here. May I invite Neil to begin with the opening remarks? Yes, please. Kira, on Panika. Yes.
On the theme of the day, which is sacrifice.
Self-giving.
Self-giving and offering.
Yes.
So I was contemplating and I got these thoughts that Mother said very clearly that our external environment is a true reflection of our internal being. What is inside is what is reflected outside. So, if we are happy with what is outside, then perhaps we don't need to offer anything. But if we are unhappy with what is around us, that means there is a lot to offer and a lot to sacrifice and a lot to change. So she will do the change, as Sri Aurobindo put it. We are not the doers there. But we have to open up and offer ourselves. So I think she will show us the way. And perhaps more people on the stage and less people in the audience also points out to something where perhaps we are holding back something, even the ones on the stage.
Right.
And perhaps those questions need to be, also offered to her so that she can really lead us.
Also, would you like to throw some light on what you think is the aspirational quality of galaxy? How do you look at it?
So I think galaxy is present in the atom, is present as a galaxy also, as we are discovering through the telescopes and through the satellites and everything else there is. But we also find that uh, it's that one form which can go both inwards and expand outwards. So Auroville is not an island and cannot be an island. And what is that form of the city which would then be able to continue to, connect with other such forms like galaxies do in reality. So there are plenty of galaxies out there, and they all also seem as one. Right, so there are so many stars and there are so many planets moving around them, and we are seeing all that around. And a similar kind of galaxy exists inside. And I still remember Sri Aurobindo's words, and the first time I heard them, he says, when you dive deep inside, the reality of that being inside is more concrete than concrete. So what we discover with telescopes and all our scientific instruments on the outside, the reality of the inside is also as true and as concrete. So all the Vedas and all the Puranas and everything that's been, the consciousness has grown and we have understood all that. So it's all the same. So what form of a city can actually express that? And it's only the galaxy that can do that. How all the zones merge and how they can expand and how we can then perhaps have other Aurovilles. And somebody the other day mentioned to me that if we don't build it here, Mother with some other people would build it somewhere else. Thank you.
With that note, Tuan, how do we build it here?
Yeah, but first on the self-giving, I
Yes.
think the self-giving in the context of Auroville is for each one of us to make sure from time to time, how can we be useful to the project? Usefulness. Self-giving in the context of Auroville means that you try to find where you can contribute in manifesting that vision. And the nice thing about Auroville and the galaxy and the township is that you can contribute in a very broad range of activities. So if you feel more attracted to the physical manifestation, you get into planning, development, construction. If you feel more attracted to building the society of Auroville, you contribute to education, economy, etc. So it is very difficult to find a person who cannot be useful. Everyone will have some talent, some skill, some aspiration to be useful. So I think self-giving in the context of Auroville is to see that you are useful to Auroville.
Thank you.
Oh,
Yeah, you can. How do
No,
you
the-
look at galaxy?
I look at the galaxy as something which is very dynamic. I think that when Roger turned the nebula into galaxy, he brought in a dynamism and a force and an energy part of it, right? Which is breathing in and breathing out, which connects with the outside world and yet also is very much focused inside towards the Matrimandir as the soul. So the galaxy model is asking us to build a town which is breathing, which is moving, which is dynamic and not static. That's how I see the galaxy. And I can also tell, because you asked from the individual point of view, when I saw the model for the first time, sometime 70s or 69, I was immediately taken by it. That this is something really unique. This has a language of its own. So it appeals to people. It has a language of its own. And the dynamism of it is one of the elements that strikes me the most.
Thank you. Ajay.
Yes. So I think for me the self-giving aspect has been there from the very, very beginning. And I can see it throughout my journey every time. Even it goes on still now, that how can I serve better? How can I serve you better? That has been from 71 when I first came to the ashram and throughout. I can remember points in the years when I was visiting that again that question was always there to Mother, no? So that is one thing. Sincerity, of course, is the base of everything that we do. Completely, it's true and true. About the galaxy, like Tuan says, I came across that very early in the UNESCO career. I can't remember which year, if it is 69 or it's 70 or 68 or 71. I came to Auroville first time 71, no? And for me, it's always been there. And as I have been going into the research I have been doing, and also with first just on the Matrimandir, and the gardens, and then the galaxy, for me it's a living reality. And I feel very, very strongly that we have to build it. We are supposed to build it at our highest consciousness. We see how fast it actually moves away. We are already redoing gardens which have been built because they are not at the highest level of consciousness anymore. No. So that has to be done. It will be like that with the city. The city is building us. That's why it's so important with the crown, with the elements of the galaxy, because we will build them, but they are actually building us. It's a very, maybe an occult, I don't know what you will call that, but it's very important. But people say that it, doesn't matter if it meanders here or there. If you take a Sri chakra, you can't start to cut the corners to fit into something. It has to be like that. There is an energy, there is a symbolism. I could talk about that for hours, but it is alive, it is shaping us, and our work is to interact with that shaping, because that will grow and that will give the space for this transformation which has to happen through this project.
Thank you.
So, Lakshay,
Yeah.
it's good to see you.
Yes. Same here.
Yes. See, for me, there are three components which actually goes hand in hand. One is the galaxy, the other one is the charter, and the third one is to be a true Aurovillian. Now, let's say, you remove the galaxy out of this equation of these three. I don't think so. The other two actually has, we'll be going around in circles, right? So, galaxy is something which is actually the base, on which actually for you to follow these principles. And I think whatever needs to be said has been most beautifully captured in the charter, and also to be the true Aurovillian. And when you come to the galaxy, every time when I get to know new concepts in the world, the first thing I do is, I always refer it to the galaxy. I say, did we miss it out? And I'm quite astounded to see, oh, they've already captured it, and then it's unbelievable to see, 50 years before they've been able to capture these concepts, which people are actually, the world is trying to come through again. Recently is, I think we had discussed about it, the NEOM project also,
Yeah.
And then we could actually, not only that, with all little bit knowledge we have, just because we had had the opportunity to look and go through, study that galaxy, we are actually even able to comment on a project like NEOM probably, which the world outside probably is so fascinated about. But then you see, wow, I mean, this is much more superior. We actually know what might really go wrong in NEOM, because the galaxy had even found a answer to it, So it's such a timeless piece, that much for sure, And how do we interpret it? I think that's where, we have the charter and to be the true Aurovillian. I think the whole equation is complete. We just have to only, walk the path. It's somebody has given you the vehicle, given you the fuel, given you the destination, and they're saying, you drive. That's all, I think more simpler than that, nobody else can actually do it. I think we should trust that process and start doing it as a journey. The journey, I'm sure, is going to be incredible. And why I'm so confident about that is, when I look into the other things which is happening all over the world, I'm showing, if they have been able to, after 50 years, they have been able to, come up with things which actually the world is only now realizing. And they have so much of, magic rapids into their head. I think, wow, such a powerful, I think that's such an incredible solution, which we have. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll come back to each one of you after. Yes.
Yeah, there's no other model which looks like that. Not yet. Yeah, or compares with that. But today is our birthday, so the first point of the charter, it belongs to humanity as a whole. That's a very big deal when you think of the state humanity is in. So what is demanded of each of us is to be these willing servitors. And, willing servitors for what? She obviously had something in mind when she, even before we saw her working on the city plan, she was sending out these messages which said, new forms are needed for a new force. Now, this force is the power that has the power to change us, has the power to change humanity, has an impact in the world. Now, if you look at that and then you think back to a couple of other things she said, as what she saw as the raison d'être for Auroville. One was the state of war in the world and the state of this incredible armament race which hasn't stopped yet. And she saw Auroville as bringing unity out of complexity, the complexity of the world, and to be able to shift the destructive current of the world. So this is why this form is there. So we cannot fool around with it. Because if we fool around with it, we do create a certain amount of mess inside our brains, inside our relationships with each other, inside our understanding of Auroville. So it's something which is seen, which is known at a certain level, and has been put in place for us to work with. So, I mean, she even says something as far as that she spoke to Sri Aurobindo about Auroville, and he said that it was the only chance to divert the next world war. And where are we? So the onus really is hugely on us. And whether it is at the level of the individual consciousness, the individual responsibility, and the responsibility to fulfill what was seen and given for a certain purpose.
Thank you, Anu. If I may go back to Neil. Neil, you mentioned about this galaxy being a model which merges and expands at the same time. The design is such. And we all agree. I'm yet to meet an Aurovillian who says, I don't like this model. No, I think you will all agree with this. Yet after 55 years, we are here still talking about when do we start, a crown or a little element. I remember you recently, being part of ATDC, you recreated the model, which Roger also did many decades ago. While you were recreating it, you might have you couldn't have avoided thinking that, oh, this is the only one that is there. Perhaps this is there, but most of it is all still in the planning. It's in the visualized phase right now. What do you think? What kept us away from the galaxy plan? If everyone agrees to it, what's the challenge according to you? Why we haven't managed to do?
These are all my very personal thoughts,
Yes, yeah,
and
please,
it goes down to
yeah.
architecture college second year, when we learn how to draw, and we see ourselves and we are excited by this whole process that we are able to draw,
Yeah.
and we start feeling that we have become architects. And then we say the next thing that you do is when you draw and you see your neighbor drawing the same way, you say, no, I then have to do something different. It's something that all of us have, born with almost. We have to be original, we have to be new, we have to be unique.
Needs to have our signature.
So, switching over to art, my sister is a ceramic artist, and she had a chance to, go to Japan and also go to States and to Europe. And something that she brought back was that artists in the Western world, they think this is the only life, and I have to create as much as I can, as many new forms, as many new things. And they just keep on. They work very hard, and they do classic art, but they do too many things. And then you see a Japanese potter who keeps building sake cups for his whole lifetime. And then when he's ordained as a master craftsman, he tries to tweak it just a bit. So how many new ragas, Hindustani classical ragas, have you seen written in the last century? There are a few, but they come very far and few in between. So there is a mulling over and there is a churning of the same thing over and over and over again. So what I started to feel was that the galaxy was there, but we were architects who were groomed by this kind of schooling, where, then I have to make something original. Right. So then I just, after I started, spending some time here, more time here at ATDC, half a day, every day, I started looking at all those drawings. Earlier it was only a feeling that the galaxy model can be built as is. It was only a feeling, and I had never done enough work to really say that I can only say for myself that feel that it is realizable as is. And that those are not just vague guidelines. They are guidelines which have lots of layers sorted out. And we just need to swallow our egos and say, I'm a willing servitor. You know, I can be a good pencil in her hands, and like she worked with Roger, she will work through all of us and create this beautiful magic of a place when it thrives with 50,000 people, you know, who will have all these various spaces and all these various opportunities created by spaces of various kinds. So the galaxy has everything in it. It has the whole universe in it. So you can find, as a poet, as an artist, as a father, as a brother, as a friend, as somebody who wants to do theater, want to create a new kind of music, everything is possible because it will just allow you that freedom and will find you that niche where you can go and do that. Today's cities, unfortunately, you can't do that. There are not many places where, for a population of even, let's say, 5,000 people, a hall like this exists. It's an opportunity. It's a possibility that has been created through a certain dynamic form which allows an exchange like this to happen. Now just imagine how many more layers are there which exists. Right. So this is something which we cannot fathom and we should not question, is my last submission. Yeah.
When you spoke about this innate nature of architects to find their little signature, and thus there has been, nobody would spell it out openly, but that seems like one of the impediment, perhaps not the only one. But I have seen your work. I live in one of your creation, Kalpana. When you look at it, even though you follow the grammar, I feel there is immense opportunity of creativity within that form. For example, if I take the metaphor of a language, even though there is a grammar for any language, and yet a poet can churn out creative expressions. You need not create a language to write poetry. So in that sense, do you think it's constraining? Is it not a great invitation, perhaps, like you said, for a population of 1,800 adults, we have, I think, if I'm, correct me if I'm wrong, 100 architects or so. Perhaps the ratio is so high. So there is an opportunity, that's what attracts the architects. And why not come and add to the beauty rather than become a constraint?
So I have this submission that nothing in Supriti and my or Ovoid's portfolio before Kalpana is like Kalpana, or tells us, or there are pointers that we can create a Kalpana. And nothing post that also right now, till for 5 years now past, shows that we could have done Kalpana. So there are more factors and more forces involved in the creation of Kalpana. It is not a creation only of some architects. If Satyakam and Devasmita were not project holders, let's say Tuan was, or you were for that matter, it would be a different Kalpana. And that's where, and I would say there has been a shift also in the architectural thinking with the coming of I.M. Pei, who very nicely puts this in an interview, where he was one of the youngest architects there, invited by Jacqueline Kennedy after Kennedy's passing away. And it was for the memorial. And stalwarts like Louis Kahn and other people were all there. And all these architects who were there for the party. It was in a party where you were walking through the site and talking to Jacqueline Kennedy, the client. All of them went up to Jacqueline and told her, this is what we should be doing. This is what we should be doing. Each one had a very concrete and a very real idea about how they would like to celebrate Kennedy's life and how affected they were by whatever he had done and in his passing. I.M. Pei says, I was perhaps the only Oriental around. And I went up to her and said, Madam, what would you like? and he got the commission. Then I came across, I'll cut it short. In Indian classical music, there is something called swar. And all ragas are written with a certain set of swars. So there is a framework of a rag, and there is that swar, but the swar is not fixed in location. And if we see Western classical music, and if Mozart has written a set of notes, either you play that, and you can play that to perfection, and it's beautiful music. But if you want to be original, you have to write your own notes. You can't be original playing Mozart. But you can be original playing Hansadhwani, Drupad, whatever, whichever raga you pick up, and you can just... So somewhere, my belief is that the galaxy is a raga, and it will allow each person involved, each one of us, that joy of being very original. But if we follow that framework, we line up with that eternal music. We don't just create music which is Neil's or Lakshya's or Twan's or anybody else's.
Yeah.
So that one rendition will also connect with other renditions and create a vibration
Right.
which will then, have the chance of floating through that galaxy, or enabling that galaxy. Yeah. But when we do things which are mine, I've done it, it doesn't work that way. It just doesn't. And I don't want to, keep hopping on Kalpana. There are many layers.
Yeah.
When the urban designers came in, we were designing something else. They brought in a layer. When we were told that there is a swale that has to be put in, we put that in. There's multiple work which went in, which created that, and there are many people who participated in it. Right?
Okay. Taking a cue from what he just said, Tuan, what did you tell to those who think that Galaxy was perhaps one of those swar Mother gave to us? It's not a final raga at all. The final piece is basically building of a new man. And it was one of those things that she said. And perhaps that building city is not, we are too fixated on the construction of the city. And that's not a point at all. And people think that we are mistaken by adhering to the construction rather than focusing on the building of a new man. What would you say to them?
Yeah, in fact, that could be one of the reasons, because you asked why the project has not taken off. One of the reasons is exactly this, that at any given time there have been people in Auroville who have questioned the physical manifestation part. In fact, by chance, yesterday I was in a meeting when somebody said the city is not important. It can wait. You won't believe it, even when Matrimony was started in 1971, there were people already saying then, why do we need a structure of that magnitude to meditate? We can meditate under a tree. These were, from the beginning, this has been there. So I'm very glad that you asked this question, because then I can show off my homework.
So this is totally fixed, huh?
Completely fixed. Because the answer to this question is actually in the Life Divine. And I'm just going to read out one passage which takes care of this, in my view. So this is a chapter where he talks about the infinite and the finite, right? And of course that you can go beyond both. So Sri Aurobindo says, our conception of the infinite is formlessness. But everywhere we see form and forms surrounding us, and it can be and is affirmed of the Divine Being that he is at once form and the formless. For here too, the apparent contradiction does not correspond to a real opposition. The formless is not a negation of the power of formation, but a condition for the infinite's free formation. For otherwise, there would be a single form or only a fixicity or sum of possible forms. The formlessness is the character of the spiritual essence, the spirit substance of the reality. All finite realities are powers, forms, self-shapings of that substance. The divine is formless and nameless, but by that very reason capable of manifesting all possible names and shapes of being. Now comes the important part, which is directly relevant to the galaxy discussion we are having. Forms are manifestations, not arbitrary interventions out of nothing. For line and color, mass and design, which are the essentials of form, carry always in them a significance. Are, it might be said, secret values and significances of an unseen reality made visible. It is for that reason that figure, line, hue, mass, composition can embody what would be otherwise unseen, can convey what would be otherwise occult to the sense. So this is very relevant to our story because it is the charter, it is the true Aurovillian and the form. So you cannot say the form can wait. There are people who tell you, let first the consciousness change, and then we build the city. So in a lighter vein, I always tell them, here is my telephone number, you just give me a call when the consciousness has changed, and then we start the city. It's impossible. In fact, the mother started the city before there was a single individual here. So it is a wrong impression that some might have that the change of consciousness has to precede the building of the city. And again, I mean, the question is, who will judge whether we achieve the consciousness which allows the city to be built? Nobody can judge that. So basically, one of the unique features, if I may use this word, in Sri Aurobindo's whole approach, is that he recombines or does away with the division between spirit and matter. So if the substance of Auroville is the spirit and the city is the matter, they have to go together. They cannot be separated at any time. It's the same thing in Multimondia. The reason that, yes, indeed, you need this whole structure called Multimondia, because in that matter, the substance can manifest itself. So I think one reason why we are delayed is because of a concept of the spirit has to come first, and then the matter can follow. It is not the case. Sri Aurobindo makes it very clear here. And that he says that the form has a specific meaning is also why you cannot play around with forms. Some people say we can tweak it a bit here and there. You can definitely play the rag in different ways. That is, the uniqueness of a rag is some performances of the rag Kirwani may last the whole night. Some may last only 1 hour. But it is a rag Kirwani. It is not some other rag. So I think we have to understand, as I said earlier, the dynamism of the galaxy allows for the rag being played in different manners, but it has to be that rag.
We are playing this rag for 55 years. There are certain people who agree with what you say, that there is a spirit and there is a matter. However, they think the matter may not be just constrained by brick and mortar. The matter can be a forest, a greenery, a green belt, a farm. So the galaxy can take any form, perhaps even maintaining the shape of the galaxy, but not putting the structures in it. So not making it basically there is a fear, Tuan, for people who come from outside, even to an extent people like me who grew up in Delhi, that we don't want another Noida or Gurgaon or any other suburb. And when we look at the brick and mortar, suddenly that brings the fear of what we had in the past. Even though the plan clearly says it's 50% green, even, for example, again coming back to your example of Kalpana, you go there, you don't know where the structure ends, where the greenery starts, it's also well merged. And then there are parks, and then there is 3/4 of the city which is a green belt, which is a buffer zone in a way. And yet we are a little bit afraid of having the brick and mortar. What do you have to say about that? I mean, is it can the matter not take any shape?
See, the brick and mortar, we are only afraid of it when we talk about the town. Nobody is afraid of the brick and mortar of the house they live in.
Yeah.
That is a very interesting thing I always see. Even yesterday, the person who said that we can wait with the city says so after their house has been built, right? But anyway, that is in a lighter vein. You see, if I think maybe this might be a lack of understanding what
Yep.
the galaxy has been transformed into a master plan, right?
And how much role, if you may also add a light, that how much of it is mother's design? Because many are thinking that it's Roger's design, so Roger is Roger, it doesn't matter, no?
You see, the mother gave first that sketch
Okay.
of the four petals, the 4 zones. And then Roger kept on coming with models. I think from 65 March onwards, he used to come with models. And when he came with a model just before the galaxy, that is the galaxy without the twist, so to say, she told Satprem, now he caught my vision.
When was that?
That was in which year, Anu? 60? The nebula. So the nebula became the galaxy. So it is like, I feel always that it is her design, but using the talent, creativity, and receptivity of Roger to get it manifested. Right? And Roger himself has told us many times, I was just a draftsman. Of
Just
the
a
model.
critique on that. Many people also say that mother agreed on the nebula, not on the galaxy. What is your view?
No, the galaxy was blessed by her for the inauguration of Auroville itself.
Yeah, they say she said okay.
But another thing I would like to add to this whole story, she appointed Roger as her architect, right? Do we agree on that or not?
I agree.
Or were you appointed? No. So the fact that she has appointed him as the architect and not you or me or somebody else means that she left it to him to work out on all those details.
And he was not an Aurovillian.
And he was often in Pondicherry at that time, and later he shifted to Auroville. The point is this, that the mother left it to him and not to anyone else to translate that galaxy into more detailed drawings and eventually what became the master plan. So it is also an artificial discussion to say what was approved by the mother and what was made by Roger. That is a discussion you can have, and you can have
rest it,
endless
yeah.
debates, but it doesn't lead to anything. She appointed him as the architect and made him an instrument of manifesting that vision.
Yeah.
No, but we have not finished your first question about can the matter take any form?
Yes.
Only trees. You see, the galaxy, if you properly study the master plan, more than the galaxy even, it has got all those elements. You yourself mentioned 48% of the town is built up. 52% is open and green. And then you have a green belt, which is 3 times the town, 15 square kilometers versus 5. You have different densities. So if you have just arrived from Delhi and you are a bit worried about high density, you move into sector 1 or 2, which are low density. And once you have evolved into a being that wants to be in higher density, you move to sector 5. So the city allows you to plug in and plug out wherever you want. It has got all those flexibilities built in. So if you ever come in that situation that you feel, are we going to be like Noida, or, you just contact Srivatsa, he will tell you exactly which sector to move into. So I think that is also taken care of.
Fair enough. Thank you. Jaya, individually, we all want to live in, what we have done is we have converted all the zones into sector 1. So what's the connection to individually, if you may look at the galaxy, how we can, if you are not an architect, and you are not and I am not, how can we connect with the galaxy? How do you personally connect with it? And also, what is your, the other day we were having a discussion on beauty, So if you may also bring that aspect, that how important is beauty, pursuit of perfection, while we build the city?
Yeah. I will take it from a kind of different angle, and my pushing for these things. Mother says that Auroville is situated in India because India holds all the problems of the world, And I have felt these last months we have been dreaming the wrong dream in Auroville, totally off chart. Because we have kept dreaming a dream, which is actually the old paradigm. I want a space, I want a big space, I want greenery around, okay? And we have put that into the ecological frame as the ideal. That is exactly what I had in the 60s, the green wave, we call it in Sweden, you know, the velour generation, sort of. You can do that in countries like Sweden or Canada. There's loads of space, no? But in countries like India, I read a newspaper every day. What is the situation with elephants? What is the situations with the tigers? Whichever animals you take, okay? We human beings are the most invasive species. We go everywhere. We talk about fish that somebody has brought. We talk about the plants, and we are very excited about this because it's so terrible. We are the most invasive species. Auroville in the galaxy actually seems to me today, as I study it more and more deeply, to actually show us a way that we have to go and live very dense, because we can do that with beauty. We have the capacity for it. I'm not talking about what is happening in the cities now. Auroville has the capacity. Roger has given us the gifts. Mother has chosen him. When you look at the galaxy development, you see the pressure of the change, and that pressure can only come from her. You see the three main stages, and when you look at the drawings, because there are lots of drawings, you see that there is something which is pressing from inside. If you've been working with artists and something in yourself, you know how that feeling is, even in other fields of work. So it is clear. She is moving the human consciousness towards something, and it gets more and more specific. And you can see that it never finishes in those other places, but here in the galaxy, it completes. So, in the galaxy, we have this great density. It has high rise. We take, for example, Line of Goodwill, that I myself have been one of the people working a lot on, seeing that the extreme potential it has. It's a hillscape, so you don't have this insulation. And how do we create villages? Because we create alienation, whether we build row houses or individual houses or high rise. All the time we create alienation. If we want to have the change of consciousness in the collective, we have to do something else. So if you keep on building the way we are doing in Auroville, I'm very sorry, there is nothing environmentally sound about that. Because it's dreaming an old dream that we all need a place which doesn't touch. It's actually the insulation in bigger and bigger fields, no? And if we keep having that dream, it means that all the ones behind us have the same dream. Okay, so every person in poverty will dream about something bigger, about that beautiful garden, about this. And in India, if we do this, we are continuously moving the landmarks, no? And somehow with the galaxy, you have all the greeneries, you have all the access, but we have to build differently. I talk a lot about these spaces that you create: private space, semi-private space, collective space, and public space. How do you do that?
With beauty.
In the horizontal and in the vertical. And we have the capacity because we are the most invasive, but we are the most adaptable. Animals cannot adapt. They have what I always forget that word. They have the size that they need. Elephants need, when you press the corridors, you have all the violence which comes, the animals get upset, they get stressed, all these things. So you need to leave space. We are the stewards of the earth. We have been given this consciousness, which is amazing, and we can appreciate all what is around us. If we are the stewards, we have to take care of everything. It's an integral approach, no? It's not about it's so much deeper, and it's about containment a lot. How do we contain? How do we contain energy? How do we contain ourselves? In a way, with the beauty, because the beauty carries it. You see, even when Mother speaks about you, she gives the garden of power, okay? The quality from which the garden of power comes is the quality of generosity. It can dissolve, and it is very, very contagious, okay? And then in this garden of power, what is the flower that she puts there? Specifically, aesthetical power. Beauty has that transformative capacity. And I think we work with it in all these places, and it's like I work with Unity Pavilion, no? And where in anywhere, and especially in India where we are, can you find a place which has that level of beauty, art, etc., which is for everybody? When we build line of force here, line of goodwill, we can do it because if you do it outside, either you find very rich people who can do it, okay? Or you do it as a social project for very poor people, which means you have cheap, cheap and poor, poor, okay? So we can actually we can do something which has relevance in the cities, in India for sure, and over the world, no. And it was interesting when once I was showing this exhibition in the Whitehall, and the spontaneous, I think it was to CPWD, was this has relevance for India. This has relevance. And I think it absolutely has relevance in the context of shift of consciousness. That's why the two things are together. It's not one dream and one building, no.
Thank you. I forgot to tell you the one format condition that the questions are longer and answers need to be short here. Just kidding. All right,
I'm glad that way.
Coming to the, I mean, the last sentence she said the relevance for India. Little bit expanding it. This city, you also mentioned about the Neom in Saudi Arabia. And then we also know the state of affairs in China with all the ghost cities. And perhaps that's not where we want to go. And given the population and the density, we will not go there. But if it's not a ghost city, are we trying to build a boast city just as a showcase? To just create it so that it can be shown as a little bouquet of sorts. That's not the purpose also. The hardware aspect is only perhaps one aspect, the software, it needs to be inhabited by right people. This needs to be, the construction itself needs to be an invitation for the right kind of people to come and make Auroville their home. And juxtapose this with the development of Pondicherry, which is expanding. She said we are not territorial, we are far more territorial, even with our Auroville experience. So the expansion is happening all the time, and right now we are in a very precarious situation that the restaurants have come closer to almost our doorsteps now. How do you see this expansion, the need for a bouquet city versus this being relevant for India? Also, mind you, this was done in 68. And after that, India in 90s picked up. Had it been already, if in 91, if it had been like living city for 20 years, that would have been a great model for all the 400 cities which are being planned under smart city. Sorry, now short answer.
That was really a long question. I need to really scratch my head to understand, grasp the full essence of it. See, first, okay, I'll just try to get the catchwords in that. One was the boast city, Yeah. So both cities, see what I'm trying to tell, probably I might also get it a little bit wrong, but kindly pardon me. The thing is I've always felt this land always has been building urban areas, urban centers, specifically to manifest consciousness. Whether you take Tirunelveli, whether you take Madurai, whether you take Tiruvannamalai, you take Kalasthi, and every 100 square kilometer of land in this part of the country has been constantly working in bringing down consciousness by manifesting an urban center.
Very nice.
Right? And can you call them both cities? I don't know. We all know, they say, you go to this place and you pray, probably the consciousness of wealth, you'll become a Ambani overnight. That's what they promise. You go to another place, they say you're cured of so and so. But for some reasons, they all believe that, they were trying to manifest a certain kind of consciousness in those certain places. Now, why didn't it happen in another place? I have no idea. But somewhere, the knowledge and what they were doing was completely of a different scale, probably not completely mental. And we have moved to a system which was brought in because of the Industrial Revolution, where you need to certain way of harness the full potential of humanity for better production. Now somewhere we are caught in between. And if you look into any of these traditional towns, you have these gobrams, out of nowhere they suddenly shoot up to, 10 floors, 12 floors. And if you ask who stays there, nobody stays there. Right? but why did you build it? Like, is it a boss? No, but actually that's a yantra, there's a certain mantra to it, it's raga. All these things are built into it. And most interestingly, all these towns, you will know exactly, they all give the credit to a Siddha. Nobody knows, this was the great thing built by Emperor so and so, nobody knows. But no, this is the place of the Siddha. This is how, all the legends talk about how it starts from a enlightened being saying, this has to happen over here, right? And I don't see Auroville anything different from that. I see that as a continuity of that whole practice which has been happening in this land. So I think for me, it doesn't sound different. I don't see that as a boast, probably, I don't know, but if I come from different part of the country, I don't know whether I would be looking at differently. So for me, I see this as a continuation of a practice and a tradition which has been happening here. So I find it very difficult for me to really associate it with something called a boast city.
Nice.
And how much of population, whether all the people in Sri Rangam, if you ask me, have become very enlightened and they've become angels with their wings and they flew up, I have no idea, and I don't think so. That's what the records also show.
Yeah.
But we know for sure. No, but we know for sure, things have progressed, things have become better. We know of so many things, the Bhakti movement, a lot of things, evolved out of it. I think in terms of contribution to humanity and the social aspect of it is immense. That I don't think so anybody can deny.
Yeah.
So I see Auroville definitely in the same sense, if you have a great human, great person, an enlightened being saying, this is what I want. And I don't have the capacity to really even understand the knowledge. It's like I'm a third standard, they are a PhD, double doctorate, and yes, I have to, and if they are my teacher, I just go with it, right? So that is the boast part of it. And the second thing is the Pondicherry eating into us.
Yeah.
See, recently I went to Sri Lanka. I was just trying to compare Sri Lanka and Tamil Nadu, how it is. See, Sri Lanka, the area of Sri Lanka is 65,000 square kilometer and Tamil Nadu is around 1.5 lakh square kilometer. But if you see the population of Sri Lanka, it's only 2.2 crores. Compared to Tamil Nadu, it's 7.2 crores, right? And you used to wonder, why is it so clean? Why are people so calm? Why is it but actually you could see the amount of pressure this land is actually having, right? And I always thought in the map, Sri Lanka is a separate country. It is supposed to be a big one. Yeah, it's great, it's nice, fantastic. The same language they speak, people look the same, I always feel like home when I go there. But actually you can see there's so much of stress which is actually here, in terms of the urbanization and everything. And it's inevitable, we actually have to move towards a certain way of lifestyle which everybody aspires, right? Now, what that quality and quantity, that is not in our aim. And I think these are the things which actually what Auroville tries to take things forward, right? Can we have a holistic society? Can we have a society which generates wealth? What is really, I find it very soothing for me is to understand, mother, when I read the things, she talks about how it generates wealth, how the best kitchens are provided, how the best stadiums are provided, the best of everything, it's she really wants to live life to the fullest, go live it, be the best artist, be the best creator, be the best architect, you do it, explore, you get challenged by the best people, everybody's sitting over there, right? And what is that wealth which, the output of that is an immense amount of wealth which will be generated. When you have all these exceptionally, focused people, who are really committed, definitely you're going to generate wealth. But what is the need of it? That is something which Auroville is the only place probably defines it completely different than an outside world. So with the current thing, it's a no-brainer. Pondicherry has already come to a doorstep. All the other places, villages have already come to the doorstep. And we don't have any authority, and I don't think so we should be the people to say no, you are not supposed to get in, right? So we all have to share this landmass, we all have to share that resources. Now how do we do it is the key challenge. And the onus lies on us to define who we are. Now it's only that we haven't defined, we haven't clearly told what we are to the people. Probably when we clearly say, they might be respectful, probably they will empathize, or they would like to follow our principles. We don't know what it is. So it's a ticking time bomb that we should only be solving. Putting it and asking Pondicherry not to come towards us and other villages not to come towards us is not going to happen.
And last point, relevance to other smart cities and other city town planners in India or elsewhere, even global south.
I'm not such a big fan of smart cities, because for me smart city is you have a very tired and somebody
When they
with
say
a lot of.
smart, it's only smart technologically.
No, for me to
It's not
compare.
reference to the people.
Yes, for me to compare, it's like, somebody is really sick, like, you put them in all the smart gadgets to monitor your health. The blood automatically gets pumped, the oxygen comes automatically, it's all artificial. No, that's actually not what we are looking. Auroville, I think, aspires to be a young, youthful, like, somebody in the teens. That's how I look at it, like, who is very agile, energetic, lively, happy.
Yeah.
That is the smartness I'm looking at, like, not the smart city of pumping your body with all the steroids and other things.
Perhaps if they want to learn something from Auroville, they cannot just emulate the model of Galaxy. They need to also look at the soft aspects of Auroville in a way, no?
Of course, because I think that is why it's important to read the Galaxy along with the charter and
Charter
other
and
things, right?
and also the dream.
Yeah,
which
you
is
tell
very
me
beautiful.
one town in the world which says, like, this is the charter of my town,
Right.
right? I haven't identified anything which says this is what you have to be, somebody from Holland, or this is what, like, somebody has to be from London or has to behave like this. I don't think so any other city says that, right?
Yeah. If I may come to Anu.
Thank you so much.
You did well, huh? Anu, charter coming, if I may take a cue from there, like you also mentioned, it belongs to nobody in particular, it belongs to entire humanity. In that case, the manifestation of the city, is that only on the shoulders of Aurovillians? Is it not an appeal to the entire world also at the same time? And what can we as Aurovillians do to manifest while we do our little efforts here and there, but also to reach out to the entire humanity to make an appeal? Is that also not our, in a way, work? And also you mentioned about this city being conceptualized in a time when there was a fear of World War III. And Mother used this, like he also mentioned, this being an yantra. And if this is such, and he referred to all the beautiful temples of Tamil Nadu, when you referred to this land, he referred to the land of Tamil Nadu. And we need to also put this in context. These temples were built in the 9th century, in the 10th century, in the 12th century, when perhaps this land was the richest in the entire world. This was the place to go in terms of GDP, in terms of social structures, in terms of cultural values. We were peaking. And it was possible to make a city based on values center, like he said. It could act as an yantra. Are we somewhere, did we falter because the aspirations are very high, whereas the material means are very meager? And while is that a mismatch? And I relate it to the first thing. Do we then need to call the outsiders' help, the humanity, to come and manifest it?
The interesting thing is, when the Matri Mandir was meant to be built, right, she wanted it done in 5 years. And she had appointed what was it called, Tuan? It was not Larsen and Toubro, it's called Larsen and Toubro now. What was it called? ECC, this company. She had actually wanted to engage them to complete the structure. Yeah? And of course, then she passed away. Then Auroville went through all kinds of things. And we took it on ourselves. And we gave, let's say, another definition of what our collectivity was, what our responsibilities were. But actually, Auroville was created for the world. So, and it has all those aspects built in. I mean, we're sitting in the international zone, right? And we are supposed to have all the let's say, the participation and the collaboration of the world in a certain sector, but that will then have an interplay with the rest of Auroville in different ways. So it's never been a closed body. But the people who choose to dedicate their lives and choose to become Aurovillians, there is a definite onus that you do have to do these things. So even if you're inviting all these people to the international zone, your responsibility is how you engage, how that manifests, so it doesn't just become one more Epcot center. that it actually becomes what it was meant for. It's the culmination of Sri Aurobindo's ideal of human unity.
Right.
So actually, Auroville is a process of that entire yoga in life, in society. And the best way to manifest that experiment or that growth of consciousness in real time, in real life, is through a city. Because, like, you've said that before. The city, deals with every facet of life, every facet of the human being, all types of situations in a society, and it can grow a society. It's this whole creation of a new society based on a new consciousness. So all that is there. So that was do we have to only depend on ourselves? No, that would be too egocentric. Because the only thing is that we would then have to hold, not the ego, but that consciousness. So whoever we invite is somehow, receives that, is able to engage with that you offer that to them, So it's up to that point. What was the second part of your question?
Do we need outside work to help?
Huh?
Do we need outside work?
Yes, we do. Definitely.
You answered, that's what I'm thinking. Yeah.
So I did answer. See, short answer.
Very nice. Incredible. I'm going to now pass on to Neil, and from there, we're going to end this talk with, as I said, practical, what needs to be done now aspects. We looked at larger things. We all agree now, at least on this panel, we need the galaxy. And we all know why we need the galaxy also. But what is that need to be done? We also a little bit touched upon the challenges. In particular, I want you to know, each one of you, I would like to hear from you about the land that needs to be yet purchased. What are your thoughts on that? The DDPs that needs to be made. You are an integral part of ATDC right now. What is your thought on that? And third aspect is, how do we ensure the green belt is secured? Yeah. Short question, long answer.
Once I had gone to this natural saloon and I saw a calendar, and there was some American quote which was there, which said, there's no dearth of money, there's only a dearth of ideas. And somewhere I believe that. And in our own little career, we have seen that when we push with ideas and we make it understandable by more people than just having, I have a beautiful idea. But when I present it, when I rationalize it, when I break it into parts and make it, tasteful also sometimes, then there are people who come with the monies. Right? So somewhere the galaxy already created an excitement. Mother and Sri Aurobindo had already made a dent with the ashram and the books and everything. So there's a lineage. There's a whole history of how Auroville also started to attract. But we did not sustain it somewhere. So we need to now do that next legwork, right, to start to re-engage by saying that this idea has so many layers and has so much potential. And people would come, and the monies would come, and the machines would come, and everything would come. It's just about not keep selling the same thing that I have a galaxy model. That bird's eye view, it has done its magic. We need to go beyond that. We need to now start to say, this is how it can be. And I do have to, go a little bit back into the thing about why a city.
Please.
The density is what is required for us to affect each other.
Very nice.
And one of the problems perhaps which I can put a finger to is that 2,000 or 3,000 of us who still live village-like have not actually affected each other enough. That's part of the problem. So living as a city is the first recourse it has to be done. It has to be done that we start living as in a certain density where we meet impromptu, where discussions happen impromptu, where meetings don't have to be meetings with agendas and starts and ends. These are some things that we have gone missing, despite all the flavor that is there, despite all the charm that is there. A Pondicherry still produces more intellectual capital, perhaps still produces more music. Right, so there is the urban form that we are now equating to tension and problems is also a fad, because it's those urban engines which are giving us all the music we hear, all the movies we watch, all the theater that we go to, all the literature. It's not being produced in villages. So we really need to not look at that aspect. Otherwise, the last part I have to say is that for all other aspects of life, we say Mother and Sri Aurobindo have given us miles and miles of pathway which is beaten by them. Only in the building of the city they failed? No. Can't be. And to end it, I would say, Sri Aurobindo has very clearly said, faith is blind. If it's not blind, it isn't faith. And on the matter and the spirit, it's a very beautiful quote, and with matter shall reveal the face of the spirit, is what Sri Aurobindo said.
No, I'm not going to let you lose that
Yes, please.
easily.
Yes.
I have complete faith in you.
Yes.
But then when are the DDPs coming?
Okay. So, I think we have asked ourselves this question: what is a DDP?
Good
Right.
time to ask. Yeah.
Yes. So I'm telling you this question last week. I have asked and I have started to research and what is a DDP. But one thing is very clear to me, that this is not a DDP as we know in town planning principles. There is a layer of art which we don't talk about. This city is governed by art. It's not governed by numbers. It's not governed by dimensions and diameters. It's governed, the principle with which we need to build is the layer of art that we have been given. And it's a lot more than just the model and what we see as a galaxy.
Right.
There are layers and layers of work which are getting revealed, which are slowly coming out from I don't know where, but they are there and they need to be looked into. Like when we started working on Residential Zone 1, we said, okay, there has to be this density and this density and this density. We seek a kind of a medieval city kind of a setup with courtyards, and then they just scatter. I said, okay, these are all buildable. I checked on the courtyard sizes and all, and when I drew sections, they're all workable. So if, what I say is, people say, no, that don't get stuck by that model. Maybe a model maker made it. I said, let me just try, has been my approach. Let me just try. And when I try, I say I can fit beautiful houses, and I can make a beautiful collective around one courtyard and another, and they can all be livable entities, which we have lived through in history, and can do maybe one better.
Neil,
Yes.
when you say that, I mean, I moved to Auroville because one of the reasons was that our founders, one is a poet, one is an artist.
Yes.
That was enough for me too. I agree with you. It's also a piece of art, like you said. But then when you say we are again going to look into the DDP, we are starting to kind of even reinvent what is a DDP. There is a little bit of suspicion that arises, oops, is it going to take some more years then? Because this can be then used by everyone else. So, we are also now thinking what is a DDP.
I don't think any of us here are sure that, when the Superman would descend. So I don't think it's all their problem. I'm not worried. I'm not even worried about failing. Because if we fail, she fails. If we succeed, she succeeds. What is there for us? We are first a devotee. And when we have signed up to be a devotee, all those things are in their hands. We just have to do the work.
Okay, I mean, time is short. I would like to know more perhaps afterwards. One more session on this I would like to have with ATDC maybe. Coming to Tuan, you wanted to, is that,
Yeah,
all right, thank you. Yes,
I'm
that
through,
was a good note to end. We are all devotees. Why worry, Tuan?
Yeah, no, I don't worry at all. But let's be clear, detailed development plan, it means DDP, not delayed development plan. So let us be very clear. And you need a plan if you want to attract people and funds to implement. No, I'm not arguing with Neil, but I'm just in a lighter
Yeah,
vein saying if you want to attract resources, funds, people, you have to come with a plan. I mean, nobody will fund a non-plan. Anyway, before you are going to ask the question, I'm going to preempt, I want to quickly add one point as to that first question, why has it taken so long? And so we had identified two misunderstandings. Right? One was Neil explaining that a lot of architects who come want to do their own thing. I had explained the misunderstanding about consciousness first, city next. There's another misunderstanding, which is there are people who believe that the galaxy or the master plan, which is based on it, cannot result in a sustainable city. Sustainable as in today's understanding. My
Metrics.
email ID is tvm@auroville.org.in. If anyone in this room or in the audience watching has found in the master plan any detail which will result in a non-sustainable city, please write to me. Because when I have studied the master plan again and again and again, we can be sustainable in terms of energy, water, mobility, choice of materials, everything. So although this plan was made in the 60s, it is timeless. It is a vision-driven plan, and it is also from a technical angle very, very interesting. So that I just wanted to be mentioned as a third misunderstanding, that the master plan, or the galaxy for that matter, will result in a non-sustainable city, which is not true at all. Now your question, please.
I would like your thoughts on this protecting the green belt, and we have instruments such as NTDA, and there is a debate whether we should even go for it, or I hear that it's been scuttled also.
You see,
What are your thoughts?
you can, anywhere in the world, including here, you can only build on your own land, obviously. So definitely Auroville Foundation will have to own the lands of the city to be able to build the city. It's as simple as that. Now the problem is that the green belt is 3 times the size of the city. It's 15 square kilometers. And there are also existing villages, temples, all sorts of developments are there which we should not and could not disturb. So in the case of the green belt, there is already an ownership of about 28%. But it is unlikely that Auroville Foundation will, in the future, own the entire greenbelt. It's unlikely. So then the next best thing you can do is to request the state government to regulate the land use, irrespective of who owns it. And there are various instruments available in the
Framework
in
of
the state.
state.
So we are in Tamil Nadu, we have the Tamil Nadu Town and Country Planning Act 1971. That act has various vehicles, and the applicable vehicle for Auroville would be what is called a New Town Development Authority, which would basically make sure that whoever owns the land abides by the master plan. So then you need not own all the land. So that would be a good vehicle, especially for the greenbelt, but also for the town itself. Because suppose some pockets of the town the owners don't want to sell, then even those owners will have to abide by that plan. So there is a vehicle available for it in the state government.
And in terms of the land within the city, which is 5 square kilometers, there are about 100 or so which is still remaining.
Yeah.
Would you say the same thing about those land also, that it could not and should not be bought? Or
Yes,
perhaps?
no, I would. The efforts to buy those lands is going on as we speak,
Correct.
and should continue to go on also. And by the way, also important pieces in the greenbelt will have to be owned, even for the simple reason of connectivity, access. But even when there is a plan to purchase all the remaining lands in the city, it makes a lot of sense to have a regulatory framework in place pending that ownership. Because some lands may not come to Auroville for years to come. And you could have undesirable developments happening there in the meantime. So the regulatory framework for land use is useful today also for the city lands.
So you think it's crucial, it's
It's,
necessary?
I think it's crucial. It's an essential component of the whole story.
Thank you.
Land use regulation. And when you go to ask the others questions, please
Yeah.
don't forget to ask the question about funding.
He should be sitting.
Jaya, funding.
That's really unfair.
He asked the questions and also.
Thank you,
get to
Tuan.
answer all the answers.
I come and sit there and
Because you mentioned land, DDP, green belt, but you didn't mention funding.
yes.
Yes, I strongly believe that we have to work on funding on a totally different level than we have been doing. No, and we have in the group which is working on funding, we have been having discussions, but we are still not able to land this. You have also been sitting as part of this, no? So you know
Yeah.
well. So I do believe that we have to, because for the maintenance of the city, okay, for the residents and all this has to come from our business side. This has to come from our economy. But the building of the city has to come very largely from outside. And I personally think that it is not a difficult thing if we are doing the work that we are doing. We had once a small conversation with Monica Sharma on this, how to do, and she said, you invite people to build the future. The money will come. You make them co-creators in building the future. And I think that is we have to do this work. I don't think it's anymore about this small movement from place to place. I think we need to create a very solid institution that can hold money and move money. And I think that we have, because we have been doing research on this already. So there are a few concepts which are there. And I think that when we come together and create this, I think we can do this. And meanwhile, we go on working with the government, doing fundraising, like Tuan is doing a lot now. So that will be ongoing. And I think we will have to keep on finding funds for the land as long as it is not all secured. And meanwhile, we try to keep it protected. But we have to still have that very, very long-term vision, like Acres for All will have, to simply year by year go on and raise funds and buy whatever is available, no? Because that is the most secure. And also because we have been very clearly told that it doesn't belong to anybody particular, but to humanity as a whole. And then we need to buy it free. And we need to, for me always I feel we need to buy it out of bondage, out of exploitation, etc., no? To secure it for its own sake of the Mother Earth.
So you mentioned about being useful in the city. It
Yes.
seems you need to add one more phrase to that. Being resourceful also is necessary right now, it seems.
Oh yes, oh yes. We are, I mean, right now we are very much kind of leaning on the government because they're coming forward. But you know, we have to really develop very widely because we need to get the mobility in place. Yeah. That's a key thing right now, which is, these are all change makers, no?
Yeah.
We need to get the activity of the crown.
Yeah.
We need to get the vocational training and the schools in places, no? And I would say about this DDP thing, because, you know, I'm certainly not an expert in those fields, but I've been sitting with Neil, and when I saw what he, because I have been very much pushing on this thing that we can't go on building the way we have been doing, with just these houses, flats, you know. It is, we need to build infrastructure, we need to build collectivity, okay? And collectivity needs certain ways of spacing. And then one day I came to Neil and I saw that he had done exactly this. He has taken up the master plan as it looks in Roger's drawings. And suddenly, instead of kind of thinking about the new squiggles, to put, he was actually using what was there. And he was looking at it from those angles of all these discussions we had. And it was amazing because, yes, it is all right there. And we also, suddenly, because we were looking for something, and then we took out some of all these drawings from Auroville. And suddenly it was like the patterns are so much more creative, but they're holding all these things which we are talking about are right there. Roger has made drawings which are full of collectivity and spacing, but in a so much more creative way than I or you can figure out, no? It was really super inspiring. So I think that the DDP is much faster with this because actually we have so much material which can very easily be used. We don't need to reinvent the wheel on this one. I think that is the kind of surprise finding which going into a lot of material, not only from Roger, but what has been all the researches which has been done in L'Avenir over all these years, which we kind of, as just looking at it, have seen go into cupboards.
Yeah.
And into, wherever, that is coming out, and there is so much that can be used. So I
Okay.
think that the work is really happening.
One more small question. You have been here since 70s, and you have been also associated with fundraising and such work. In our community, it seems, often when people ask me what do you do, I say I do communication work, and what do you do? Real work, It seems in our community, there is much emphasis on bricklaying, on gardening, on physical work. There is much appreciation for it, and far less for people like me whom they think I'm just in front of computer and doing, easy stuff. Whereas I don't get to see my kids for a while. That's something which people do not understand, that this also is a hard work. And in this case, do you think this contribution towards the city, the galaxy, will not only come from people who manifested through brick and mortar, but also has to come through communicators, through fundraisers, through designers, through artists, so various other fields which is not conventional hard work?
You see, this is very, very obvious. And it's very interesting to see now, because I have myself been watching over the years how we, for example, neglect business. We see it as a necessary evil, sort of. Okay, I'm putting it very roughly now.
Right.
But it has basically been treated in a very stepmotherly way. We need it and we want the money, but we are not supporting
Right.
it. Okay, so now there is an attention which is going to the industrial zone. It has to be developed. It's a priority. But not only that, we're also actually starting to look. For me, that has been an eye-opener. How are we using our land? Why are we, for example, in Kulapalayam and other places, using roadside land for private spaces, and then our businesses are renting houses from the villages or buildings to use? We have to be very proactive on raising funds for maintaining Auroville, because we need to shift our economy. We see that a lot of the outcomes we have presently of what can be called mismanagement, wrong actions like that, is because the actual need for funds.
Right.
Okay? And we see that we have a lot of, the present system we have is extremely unfair and extremely unsustainable. So to do this system, we need to be proactive and really support, because business is a capacity. Communication, we are lacking communication like anything. Okay, so people are asking all the time, why you're not communicating? Because we are very busy working, but we need communicators. Since many years we know it's a very important field. We never managed to satisfy it because we always put that other side first, out of necessity also.
Yeah.
So I think that what we are looking at in the present development, every part which is coming in place is fostering integrally the whole this time.
Right.
And it has to be, it's our chance to really do it in such a way that we are shifting the consciousness with it also. That
Wonderful.
goes, it's totally one, no?
Thank you, Jaya. Srivatsa, if you can throw in some more pearls of wisdom.
Pearls of wisdom regarding what?
Just like that, I don't know how you came up with that previous one. And also, if you can throw some light on NTD, I know we have worked also while we were together in TDC.
See, I don't know, it's been a year or something, nearly a year since I've been out of TTC. But it has been I would say it's quite an interesting thing, because now I'm having that opportunity to look from outside, From outside, actually, I've seen from inside. From outside, especially what it means, there are two layers which I'm seeing. One is about actually, manifesting Auroville. The other one is, how do we fit in the outside world, in the context of the outside world? See, like I said, Tamil Nadu is a very urbanized state. It's the second most urbanized state, I think. And you have a governance structure, you have a system of administration, and usually the government defines what it is. And here we have taken that role of defining who we are to the government. But then how do we explain to it? The easiest way is to work within their framework. Now, if you see master plan is something like, when I was in TDC also, the common thing is like, why wasn't it much better? This element was missing, that element was missing. I see it in a completely different way. Actually, what we did was we went and we identified ourselves to a certain governance structure outside, and they have a certain framework, they have a certain language, and it's not our job to go and define, like, to ask them to change how they do administration. So they have a system, it might be rudimentary, it might be complex, that's not our job. But I think it's important that, like, that we have this handshake with them. Tell them, look, we are here, we are existing, we are the so-and-sos. Now, what are the layers you have? These are your layers, fine. We tick into these things. But we are much more than these layers. But they don't have that option, like, so we can only, like, answer what layers they have. So we have answered it, like, I think that's what the master plan, more than for us, it actually helps us to identify ourselves collectively to the outside world. What stops us, like, from tomorrow if we don't have a master plan? We are just one big real estate, the biggest landowner. That's it. There's nothing else for the government. There's no definition of spiritual town anywhere in the law book or anything, as far as I know. Or in the Tamil Nadu Town and Country Planning Act, does not say what a spiritual town is, and there's no blessings given for that separately, right? So an industrial town and spiritual town, everything is all like, people look at it into an institutional classification. You have an institution or a spiritual town, it's all institutional classification. That's all, like, period. It's all kind of level down to a certain... Bracketed together, right? So I think instead of wasting energy on, like, to make a very perfect master plan, we should actually look, this is what it is, like, and let's coexist together. These are the things we want, and we should use that master plan to define what we want, put that, capture that, and give it. And I think that, to a certain, the master plan has done its job. Now, using that credibility, or the blessings what we got from the central government, we have to take it to the state government. And I can also assure you the Town and Country Planning Act, whether it's NTTA or whatever it is, unfortunately in 2019 they created a rule called the TNCDPR. And it looks like, they had even returned to TDC, and we missed the bus. So we have been clubbed with any other towns in the state, and we have to show ourselves within 4 or 5 classifications. That's all we have. And you have a common FSA of 2, like, residential zones have only a FSA of 2, which means, like, in 1,000 square feet land, you can only build 2,000 square feet. So forget about line of force, forget about this, right? So now we need to really go an extra effort to make sure that what we are. But is there other options? I think there are other options also. More and more looking from outside, I feel like, we should actually identify ourselves, go and get one classification, at least if not NTTA, get an institutional use classification, and within that get a sanctity as an architectural master plan, and look at it as an architectural project, and start working within ourselves. Outside world, nobody is going to be, if you say it's going to be 10th floor or 9th floor of line of force, the government is not interested, right? All they need is, have you got a permission? Because, we are the governance structure. Have you informed us? Have you told us, what is the capacity of electricity you're going to use? Have you informed, what is the amount of water you're going to use? Have you told us what is the impact you're going to make on mobility, the amount of traffic? I think that's what the current government or what the system is interested in. So somewhere I think we should not get this thing delayed. I think we are spending too much of unnecessary time on that. Get that, make that handshake, get it there, and we should start moving forward. Otherwise, it's really not really worth, sitting on the master plan itself for 20 years, it doesn't make sense at all to me.
Well,
and the DDP, I think I can understand your position. I was also in the same place and the same questions were, so I don't see yourself, I see myself.
The same question, what is DDP initially?
So yeah, best of the luck for making the DDP. So I think there are many versions of DDPs. So yeah, I think the master plan, let's not spend time on it. And definitely I think we should be focusing on getting that land by whatever. And it's a blessing, at least we have the Indian government, kind of looking at this project.
Yeah.
So somewhere we should be looking at, seeing how we could get with the lands. But in the land in such a way that we don't antagonize the local population. That is very, very important. See, we should not be seen as some kind of a land grabber or somebody who is kind of imposing something on the local population. I think the goodwill of the local population is of paramount importance. And land is a very fundamental topic because, it borders on human rights, historical memory, quite a lot of things, right? So how do we get it? Like, no, probably it's time we have to be creative, like, no, see what we try to get out of it. I think we shouldn't, we should be able to explore, any, all avenues to really work on getting it in a very honest way, within the rule of the law. Yeah.
Thank you, Srivatsa. I think for the goodwill of the locals, perhaps what is even more important is that we set the right example. We show that the project that has been, the land that has been already acquired is rightly put to use. That will perhaps give them some motivation to let go of their other spare land.
See, one thing which I'm really concerned, especially post-COVID, is, see, somewhere the outside world has come to a conclusion that this is a kind of a very unique town where we could come and spend time, right? In fact, like, one of my friends, when they called me, they said, like, do you know Foot Street? We would like to explore Foot Street. I said, Foot Street? I've never known. Where is Foot Street in Pondicherry? He said, no, in Auroville there's a Foot Street. You don't?
Where is Foot Street? I don't know where is Foot Street.
The Foot Street is from Certitude to Quilapalyam. It's now known in the outside world as a Foot Street.
Wow, okay.
Right? So I think when you actually move in that direction, definitely it has repercussions on real estate, the kind of people you bring, and a lot of other things, right? Now, how, let's say, like, you go to a place like Tirupati in the hills, like, you have a piece of land, right? You automatically, because of how clearly it has been defined and how the kind of people it comes, even a private person who wants to really, like, want to be with it, tries to relate to it, right? So you get that kind of, even whom he might be a corrupt politician, he might be a person who is not inclined to you, but when he looks at it, even as a real estate, he looks at a project which is in alignment to that.
True.
He doesn't look at, like, putting up a Foot Street in Tirupati. I don't think so. That's how. So I think somewhere, like, it is very important that we define what we are, right? And unfortunately, I don't think so we have been able to do it. And if you have Foot Streets today being classified, probably the biggest problem when we were in TDC was actually we used to look into the Google Maps, to find out where the routes are, how people get in. So we used to see, like, where it could be worked out and other things. And you could see, like, every month, like, new things popping up in Google Map within Auroville. So pretty soon, I think you'll have a Foot Street mark there in the Google Map. And yeah, how do we reverse it, right? Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Sri. It's true, no? We better define ourselves before it's too late. I give you the last word, Anu, and then we open up for 3 questions perhaps from the audience. So, you have written many books on Auroville, but right now you are, even though being a celebrated writer, you are a censored writer.
Yeah.
So, I give you the last word. Go ahead.
Right. See, the Food Street, if you're talking about that, is our southern green belt. Right? So the best way to defend the city, protect the city, is to build it. There's no shortcuts to that. And if we're talking about, you've all been talking because you're in the nitty-gritty of things, the buildings, the bylaws, this and that. But ultimately, it's the people. We're just 1,800 adults. After 55 years, that is just not justified by any standard, right? So the first thing, I think, this is a human project, ultimately human unity. And that's not going to be built either by making it a forest or making it only a city. We know it's an example of coexistence of both, right? So now everything falls, we're reaching a kind of crisis point. We need people, and we need the funding. We need the buildings. They all have to now go together. And if we are going to think of it just as another normal municipal town, it's just going to be a very boring project. We have to go back to thinking of it as it was meant. When she started Bharat Nivas, all these buildings, we were not even 200 people. But she was building at that scale. When she was asked about the cultural zone, the usual suggestions, I mentioned that before about schools and colleges and buildings and this and that, and she said nothing of that sort. I want auditoriums, I want galleries, I want museums. So it was a totally different stadiums, for an Olympic. It was a totally different definition, and we have to come to that scale of imagination. If we start building little like we have been doing, we're small, we build small. We have to build at that scale. We have to dream. And, right now we're daydreaming. We're not even dreaming. Her dream is something else. So we have to kind of come to scale with that dream. And only that has the power to attract people. Like when we saw the galaxy plan, so many of us came there. What was it? We didn't even understand what that thing was. But there were so many of us who said, we want to be there. What was it? We didn't even know what it contained. So that is the dimension we need to harness. We need to be able to communicate that effectively. We need to be able to welcome people into that. So right now, okay, we are still in a small daydream thing. We're talking about welcoming, not volunteers, because volunteering has a very limited sense that we come, hang out, go to Food Street, do a little bit of work and go away. But really come to engage, really come to give our lives to this, give our lives to build this vision. So that dimension is the huge job. Lakshay, you're on it now, the communication part which you were asking. It's a huge job because we need to shift that way we are looking at Auroville. We're looking at Auroville, if you look at it just like another municipal town with this and that and this and that, it's totally boring. Why should people come here? Then they'll just come here to hang out in Food Street and have organic food and get a massage and go away. But that's not Auroville. We're not building Auroville with that. So that, Auroville has to be, somebody was saying, has to be at the level of what Matri Mandir has set in place. Everything that, when she actually started, she was asked why she didn't start the Matri Mandir. She said she didn't want just another temple and just a little, stuff growing around it, like all these old towns. She wanted things which would be at that dimension, would match it. So I think that's the level of breadth has to change for us. That's it.
Thank you. I mean, that's a sincere effort of ours in a way it's a baby steps to get what, it's while we do this, it's also an occasion for us also to touch base why we arrived here. Perhaps you have come long back. And this reminds us, and it helps the new people to see Auroville in a new light, because right now, like you said, the vloggers, the bloggers are basically dictating the narrative to a certain extent. So we, as like you said, we need to define ourselves for now. If any one of you have any question, we can quickly. Yes, Tapas, would you like to please come here and ask the question? As of now, our city is short on mics. Yes, Tapas.
I was in the previous session, and for me the concluding word was collaboration. How do we collaborate with the regional, the local villages, and at the national level? So this is where, in terms of communication and collaboration and accepting the reality as it is, how do we move forward and start enhancing the mother's dream and work towards it? Because probably if within the city some lands are not available and landowners are not willing to let go, they want to see if you are doing business, why can't we? So they'll come and build restaurants in another Noida within the city.
Right.
So it's a big challenge today, and definitely the government is looking at us. And where are we? And they are putting pressure. When are we building the city?
Yeah.
So,
Tuan, would you like to take? Yeah, Srivatsa is a willing servitor.
I think one part of the question which I can understand is what do you do if we have people who are not willing to give us that land for whatever reason? See, let's say they will only see somebody doesn't want to give the land. One of the primary reasons being that they feel they could capitalize on the value of the land because of its proximity or being inside Auroville or associated with Auroville. That is the basic thing on which they stand. And they feel they are going to lose out because they are going to earn much better revenue source than having, let's say, a land near Puthurai or somewhere over there, for example. Now, I'll just give you an example. You have something called the ocean, that guest house, ocean.
Ocean.
Inside, near Afsana, you have ocean. And then there's something called Temple Tree in Kuilapalem. All right. So you could see actually like, the quality of ocean spray and everything. Even for an outsider, he feels like, look, this is actually totally disconnected from Auroville. He doesn't know what it is, whether it's the style or whether what they offer or whether it's the quality, whatever it is. No, but they know this is actually not in the spirit of Auroville. Let's say like, this temple tree is also out, in the vicinity of Auroville. Somehow they got an Auroville architect to build it and they are running it and other things. They are able to fare much better. So what actually happens is like, even if we are not able to get the thing, they slowly start to at least fall to the value systems that we are looking at. See, somebody started a good pizza thing, it was a boom. Now you have at least like 20 pizzas on the road, right? So I think we are the ones who are actually setting the standard and the pace. And if we are really honest and we are able to really commit ourselves to a very high standard, then the person what he has is just a land, and he has to follow the thing. He will follow the trend, and I don't think so that will be as damaging as what we really fear. And eventually when he follows the trend, then he'll understand like, it is much more better than to be part of that community rather than to stay outside. So it will fall in place. I think, yes, we should look at lands, but I think it's also important that we keep pushing our standards and boundaries more and more up, so the people automatically will fall in place. If you see that small contractors after working here, you should see their houses in Kuilapalayam. They don't do mediocre houses. They have a spiral staircase, they do CACB blocks, they do it a little bit neatly. The next house would be very shabby. So you could see that something over here resonates with the people. He has a choice to cut corners and build a very mediocre house. Yet he takes that effort to actually spend that little bit more to do something much better than what he sees in his village or something. So I think these are really good affirmations or positive points.
Yeah.
And I think we should take that as a learning example and move forward. Thank you.
Yeah, quick Neil remark and
It's very wonderfully put. And Satyakam and I had gone looking for tiles for Kalpana to Mobi, and then we decided to go and visit Rani Ki Vav. And as I walked to Rani Ki Vav, I had never seen Rani Ki Vav. I only knew it from architecture books that, okay, there is something called a step well and it's one of the biggest one. But as I walked through the city, I saw miniature Rani Ki Vavs in front of every house. Even a modern mall done with that kind of steps and that kind of section. So it's like if somebody, really sang a wonderful song here, either we will join him or her in the right sur and in the tal, or we shall just keep shut. And the power of Galaxy is that if we make it and we make it work in the parts that we have, it will just have the force to make people fall in line. There will be people who will come and surrender. There will be people who will surrender their lands. People will say, I want to be a part. Please make me become a part. Right? It is absolutely possible by the power of form.
yeah,
It's absolutely possible.
yeah.
No, I want to add something to the conversation, if you don't mind.
Yes, quick one line.
We are always good in talking about what we don't have, right? We don't have this land, we don't have funds. We have 85% of the city lands, 85%. Means 85% of the city can be built, right? What I really would like to appeal to the two ATTC members sitting here, whether you call it the DDP or you call it anything you want to call it, we need implementable plans and the funds will come. There are people, there are companies, there are individuals who are willing to subscribe to underwrite the funding of Auroville.
Right.
I know some of them personally, but there is no implementation plan, right? So if somebody writes a check tomorrow morning, day after tomorrow morning, the work should start. So don't waste any more time on even trying to understand what a DDP is. And if you, no, seriously, if you need help from outside, appoint any number of consultants, but get those plans on the table so that we can attract the funding and the human resources to build that town. 85% of the town can be built.
Super.
Let's remember that.
Okay, that's a positive note.
No, I need to say
Okay,
something
Jaya.
now.
All right, final
That's
note.
how
I'm
it
sorry.
goes.
Yes, please. Yeah, the camera
No,
needs to go. Yeah.
I
Yes, please.
I
Yeah.
just want
Yeah,
to
yeah.
say, you can
Yeah,
say
quickly.
without camera now, that actually this work is going on, and we cannot start any construction because of this traditional thing, but we are actually preparing. So the moment that is there,
Yeah.
then we should be able to go with housing,
Yeah.
etc., etc. So it is not that we are sitting talking about this.
Right.
With CPWD and with the team, Anupama, Sindhuja, you guys, actually the work is going on and very fast.
Wonderful. Time is really short, so I'm going to cut it off there. The lady on the 44th row and the gentleman in the 19th row, sorry, we cannot take your questions. Neil, to just come back to that, our sincere effort has been through the city conversations to highlight the idea of the galaxy, the need for the city, and we hope that we will continue this. We started this last year, at least once a year, to talk about what the city really means for us. And that has been a sincere effort through these discussions. And this is the 8th day. I thank all the participants, all the panelists who have been part of it. And I hope that this is not time bound in a way. It's not meant to be just for the festival. This is available online. It's on Auroville channel on YouTube. So this can be shared. This can be watched again and again. It can be used against you. Thank you very much for being part of this panel. Thank you.